It's Super Bowl week, but the New York Jets still made headlines even though they are not playing in the big game, and it's all because of comments from their owner, Woody Johnson. Let's talk some Jets off-field activities. We're going to do it with the great Jets beat reporter for the New York Post, Brian Costello, who joins us from Vegas. Brian, how are you doing the Super Bowl week?
I'm good, Dexter. Tired, ready for the game.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I'm sure you're ready to get to the game. Now, Brian, you were at NFL Honors on Thursday night, and clearly Woody Johnson, he had some things he wanted to get off his chest. When talking about team needs, the Jets owner said, quote, "We need a backup quarterback. We didn't have one last year." So I got to ask you this. Was Johnson throwing shade at QB Zach Wilson or general manager Joe Douglas, or both? Who was he throwing shade at?
All the above, and I'd even throw Robert Saleh in there too, because he was involved in the decision making on who the backup quarterback would be. I was shocked that he said that. Zach Wilson's still on the team technically, Dexter. I mean, no one expects him to be on the roster in 3 months when the team starts practicing again. But right now, he's a member of the team, and it was pretty rough from Woody to say that about Zach, that they didn't have a backup quarterback, and he really. We were talking about like team needs, and he was saying offensive linemen, wide receivers, like what else do we need? And a reporter said, "How about a backup quarterback?" And that got the comment that they didn't have one last year. So, yeah, pretty rough from Woody.
Yeah, pretty rough. Wonder how Zach Wilson was feeling when those comments got to him. Must not have felt good. Or Joe Douglas, like you said, all the above
Yeah.
could feel like they threw
Yeah,
some
I think the
shade.
Joe Douglas piece is more interesting, Dexter, because
Mm.
Zach Wilson and the Jets are heading for a divorce. Zach Wilson does not have good feelings about the Jets right now. The Jets do not have good feelings about Zach Wilson right now. But Joe Douglas has got to go to work here, and the piece he's working on is trying to trade Zach Wilson. So if you're talking to a team and you're Joe Douglas and saying, "Hey, we want a fifth round pick,"
Mm.
that team may wake up this morning and go, "Hey, Joe, your owner said you didn't even have a backup quarterback, and you really think we're going to give you something for this guy?" So I think it was rougher on Joe Douglas than Zach.
Yeah, no, that's a great point right there. And Woody Johnson is, he also stated that the team, quote, had to produce this year. That statement would seem to intimate that Joe Douglas and head coach Robert Saleh, they're on thin ice here. Could Johnson make swift changes in the 2024 season if that season starts off poorly?
It's not his way, Dexter. It's really not the Jets haven't done that since the 70s. Fire a coach in the middle of the season. We lived through some scenarios where we've talked about in that in recent years, right? Todd Bowles, Adam Gase, both of those guys in their last year, we talked about whether teams should move on midseason, and they didn't under the Johnson family. So I guess it could happen, and Jeff Ulbrich kind of feels like a guy who could be a head coaching candidate, but I still don't see it, Dexter, unless it was a really disastrous start. I think Joe and Robert have the 2024 season to figure this out.
All right, so you got the season to figure it out. We will see how all that goes. And the thing for me, Brian, when I'm looking at this with the Jets and the comments that we saw from Woody Johnson at NFL Honors, the Jets seem to be banking on the fact that a healthy 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers is going to improve this team's offense. And Johnson feels that the QB, he said, will help to close the gap with the Bills and the Dolphins in the division. Does the return of an older Rodgers coming off of an Achilles injury drastically improve the offense, or do the Jets need more upgrades on that side of the ball?
Both, I think, Dexter, right? Aaron Rodgers isn't enough, a return of a healthy Aaron Rodgers. And look, you're right. They're banking on getting the Aaron Rodgers of 2020, 21. He's 40 years old. He's coming off an Achilles surgery. His last full season with the Packers wasn't quite the previous two were. He still had a good season, especially by Jet standards. But I think they still need to really address the offensive line heavily, Dexter. They need at least two, maybe three new starting offensive linemen. They need to get a true number two wide receiver to complement Garrett Wilson in here. So it's not just Aaron Rodgers, but I do think Rodgers returning does make the offense a lot better than it was.
Yeah, it could only go up from last year. I'm sure Jets fans will agree with that. Last thing for me, Brian, with these, and I'll call this spirited comments that Johnson made to the media, he sounded very disappointed with where the franchise is right now. But was there any self-accountability here? Because he's been the owner of the Jets for over 2 decades now, and he's seen the team not make the playoffs for 13 straight seasons. And I'm just wondering, should gangrene fans want to hear some accountability from their owner with where the franchise currently is?
Yeah, I think that's fair, Dexter. I would also say, in fairness, he wasn't asked that question. I think had I or another reporter say, "Woody, how much blame do you deserve for this. I do think he would have taken some accountability there, but I understand fans wanting that from him, and it hasn't been good for a long time. Woody's first decade of owning the team was pretty good. They went to the playoffs a lot. They went to the championship game twice, but the last 13 years have been horrible. And yeah, he obviously deserves a significant chunk of the blame there. It starts at the top. So I think Woody would take some blame if he was asked that question. He wasn't asked it last night, but I do understand fans wanting to hear that.
Yeah, I understand fans wanting to hear that. Also understand his frustration, even as an owner with the team last year. And we'll see what changes will be made, or we know there will be changes coming after the 2024 season. That is Brian Costello, New York Post Jets beat reporter, out covering the Super Bowl. And when you get spirited comments from Woody Johnson, he's going to tweet about it, write about it. Let us know. Brian, we appreciate it. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, Dex.